Hello everyone, this is Mel here. Welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to take a look at the Barbarian Prince. So the Barbarian Prince is a solo board game slash RPG initially released back in 1981 by Dwarf Star Games and designed and developed by Arnold Henrik. So a bit of a history class. So for those of you who have not heard of Arnold Henrik, he was a game designer in Dwarf Star Games and also later on in the Microprose. And he was famous for his negative review for the original D&D back in 1974. And he basically described the original D&D as a mediocre game because there's simply a lack of rules for a lot of the actions. And obviously that angered a lot of old D&D fans, and also Gary Gygax, who is the designer of the original D&D as well. And I do think somehow this is his response to all the outcry from all the backlash from the D&D fans, because in my opinion, this is a game that kind of designed or defined what an open world RPG is. And obviously Arnold went on to develop a cult classic CRPG that is Darklands and in 1992, and that game has actually influenced a lot of modern RPG designers such as Todd Howard in his Elder Scrolls games, and also the likes of George Soros in his in Fallout New Vegas and Pillars of Eternity. So in a way, this is kind of the early pioneer of open world RPGs, and we're going to take a look at and see why that is the case. So let's take a read. So this game will be a new experience. You're about to become a character in a story that changes every time. You are the Barbarian Prince. This is a solitaire game. You play alone. In this story game, you read one numbered section after each other. Each describes a new situation or provides rules about the choices and actions you can make. There are hundreds of events and situations, so each game will be a new, fresh experience. And that is very true. Well, apart from the new experience part, because this game has, in my opinion, one of the uses such a great way of utilizing the passage system, the story passage system, and the rule passage system to generate an epic scale story that you can easily fit into this two little tiny booklets. Now, the version that I'm playing in front of me is not the original version, which is really difficult to come by, obviously, because this game was released back in 1981 and Dwarf Star Games folded back in 1982. So there was almost just 1 year of circulation of the game, of the original game, and it was also famous for being a very flimsy game because it was basically a folio game where you fold everything together, and it's not designed for multiple plays. So the game that I'm showing you is the redesigned version by Guillermo Coutinho. Sorry if I butchered your name. A famous RPG kind of layout designers in the indie RPG scene. And for most of the games that he touched upon, you can tell straight away that he was involved somehow, because the layout will be so much better than most of the other RPGs. They're so clean, they're easy to read, they have a very distinct style to them, and that's the same for this version of Barbarian Prince. And you can easily see that this two columns layout simply make it looks like a modern RPG design. And if you put this game in a modern RPG, like an indie RPG shop, then no one can tell that this was game designed back in 1981. And this game also has featured a new redesigned map, hand-drawn map by Alex Damasceno, who goes by the name of now Monster. And Alex is also a really talented artist, and I highly recommend all of you, if you're interested, to go check out their itch.io pages, and also probably look at the other works that they worked on. And these games are also free, as of you can basically download them from Guillermo's Twitter page. So I will put that link down below. These games are not in public domain, but the new owners of the rights, Reaper Miniatures, have kindly allows the release of these games online for personal users. And we are going to look at how this game goes. So, similar to the Drifter games that I have previously covered, you can see the Barbarian Prince is also a hex scroll based game where you're basically going through a hex map that is pre-written, pre-designed for you. So there are different terrains, so there will be like mountains, countryside, there will also be potentially some towns and ruins and so forth. And what you're trying to do is to go through this map and try to earn 500 gold in order to win this game, because you are going to play as the Barbarian Prince of the Northlands Kingdom, which is not part of this map. It's basically on the north side. You have been exiled from your kingdom because your father has been assassinated by the usurpers. And you are trying to you have been smuggled through the Southland borders, and you're trying to go through this new land that you are not familiar with and try to gain 500 gold, raise an army, and in order to defeat the usurpers. So, there's a very clear goal of what you're going to do. You're trying to gain enough gold to win the game. Now, for this game, there's the stats. There are a bit more to track than the Drifters. For example, there's a time limit. You are going to try to gain 500 gold in 70 days, so 10 weeks time. You also need to take concern of food because you will potentially starve, and in turn you will become weaker if you start not having food for consecutive days. And also, on top of that, you will have a few stats. So you have your combat skills and also your wits and wiles. Now, this is similar in terms of compared to the Drifters. Combat skills dictate a majority of the combat outcome and some kind of physical outcome sometimes. Wits and wiles is the most important stats in this game that basically combines all your typical RPG stats like intelligence, and charisma and everything into one. So you normally start with rolling a d6 to determine what you have. I do recommend again to start with either 5 or 6 and go from there. If you find that too easy, then you can later on change that to the smaller ones, because this game is very deadly as well, similar to the Drifters. Now you also have your endurance, which is your health points. You start with 9. And that's pretty much it. You start with all of these. Basically, you don't have a lot of money. You can roll on the initial treasure. So this game works on a code base. So you basically, whenever you defeat an enemy or you find a treasure, they will give you a kind of a wealth code, and you need to roll a d6 to see what exactly is the treasure. So you start with 2. So the maximum you can get is 4 in this case. So let's see what we have. 1, so that's no gold at all, so that's not even worth. So we don't even start with a penny on our back. So unfortunately, that's what happens when you goes on exiles. And from there, you are going to go anywhere you want. And similar to the Drifters, every time you move to a different hex, you're gonna see if you're gonna encounter an event. Now, this game does include a bit more survival game or early hex crawl survival mechanisms. So first of all, you need to roll on this travel table to see if you get lost when getting out of your current hex. So there's a loss roll over here. So you roll 2d 6 and see if you get higher than this amount. If you do get higher than this amount, then you're not able to get out of your hex on that day. But you will still potentially get an event. So after rolling on the loss table, you roll on the event table, again 2d6. If it's more than that amount, then you need to roll on the next columns to see what kind of event you're going to have. So in that sense, it's slightly different from Drifters, because in Drifters, you're always going to roll on an event. There will always be things happening whenever you go to a new hex, and in a way that obviously provides more things going on. So there's more event happening on a daily basis. But for Barbarian Prince, it is kind of the early hex crawl kind of a survival experience, where there could be days where you get lost and there's no events happening, and you're just basically spending your time, your food, without any progressions. Now, I do think there's one house rules that I'm going to apply in this case, which is the loss house rules. So for each consecutive days that I'm spending on the same hex getting lost, I will subtract my dice roll by 1. So for example, if I lost today, then tomorrow my dice roll 2d6 will be -1. And then if I can still get lost, then the next day will be -2. So I won't get lost in an hex forever, simply because of poor dice rolls. And I think that makes perfect sense as well, because you spend that many days traveling in the same hex, then there's a good chance that you get more familiar with the places, and less chance for you to continue to get lost. So in terms of the actual game, so as I mentioned, this is basically 2 booklets. There's one for rule sets and one for event sets. So you normally start with just reading a event. This game doesn't require you to read through the whole rule books. You basically will hold your hand whenever there's a, for example, an encounter. It will reference a specific rule set, and in that case, you can then go to the rules and see what that is about. So let's start with our adventure. The adventure begins. Evil events have overtaken your Northland's kingdom. Your father, the old king, is dead, assassinated by rivals to the throne. These usurpers are now hold the palace with their mercenaries, royal guards. You have escaped it, and must collect 500 gold pieces to raise a force to smash them and retake your heritage. Furthermore, the usurpers have powerful friends overseas. If you can return to take them out in 10 weeks, their allies will arm, and you will lose your kingdom forever. Now consult rules 202 to determine the starting attributes and of yourself as a Barbarian Prince, and then return to this event and paragraph below. As I've mentioned, we have already got our combat skills, which you start with 8, and the wits and wiles, I decided that we will start with 6 for this game. So to escape the mercenary and royal guard, your loyal body servants, Ogap, smuggled you into a merchant caravan to the southern borders. Roll 1 die to see where the caravan takes you, while poor Ogap faces the wrath of the royal guards back home. You are in, and you're going to roll a d6. So this is 6, and we're in hex 1801. So 1801 is in the middle, so they're on the right hand side, so we're in the mountains. And now at dawn, you rode out of the merchant wagons into the ditch, dust off your clothes, loosen your sword belt, and get ready to start the first day of your adventures, and see rule 203 for possible actions available to you. So from there, we can go anywhere we want. And the best thing of this game is that you can kind of decide if you want to, if you look at the map and see if there's any point of interest, and start moving your ways onward to there. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the first thing. So first thing first, it's important to go through the river on the north hand side, because you are still being chased by these royal guards of the usurpers. So if you don't go through the rivers on the first day, there's a good chance that you will be chased by the royal guards, and you need to fight them, and they are really deadly. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to get through to this 1701, And the way it works is, first of all, you need to roll and see if you can get through the river. So you need to roll 2d6 to see if you can get through the across the river without getting lost. So in this case, we roll 2, roll a 4, which we didn't get lost. And then after that, you will roll a 2d6 to see if there's any event happening when you roll get through the river. So again, a 3, so there's no event. It means that we successfully get through the river, and we need to check if we can get into the hex that we're looking into. So the hex that we're going into is a 1701. Then that is a badland. So there's a hill hex. So in that case, we need to roll on the hill hex. So again, a 2d6. If we roll more than 8, then we'll get lost. And we still didn't get lost. So and let's see if there's any event when we move into that. That will be a 10 plus. And there's no event. So that's the first day. So we managed to get through without any issues. We're no longer being chased by the royal guards because they've lost our tracks once we get through the river. And we can go into the forage or the hunting phase, because we start with no food on our backs and we will get starved if we don't eat. So in this case, the game is also very easy. It's a very light survival simulation experience. You just roll 2d6 and see the numbers. We get an 8. And what you need to do is minus your combat skills plus your current health divided by 2. So at the start of game, it's always 12 adding together. So in this case, it's 12 minus 8, and we get 4 food. And obviously, we need to consume 1. And that concludes our very first day. And I'm probably going to skip through this game to the more interesting days, and we'll come back on those. So this is day 4 of our adventure, and we have managed to arrive into this forest, and we have also got ourselves some more food over our journey here. But we are going to have an event here because we have rolled more than the event table, and we're going to see what we're going to see together. So the forest will have these options. So we're going to roll 2d6 to see what we get. So it's a 3 and 3. So 3 of forest is 242, and if we look at 242, 3 is event 025. Event 052, Goblins. You sight a band of goblins in the distance. Roll 2 dice for the number in the band, and we're going to see how much there are. So there's 5 of them. Each is combat skill 3, endurance 3, wealth of 1. In addition, they are led by additional hobgoblins with combat skill of 6, endurance 5, and wealth of 5. You saw them first, so you can either escape or you can attempt to follow them. Now, if you do follow them, after the follow movement, roll 1 die. If the result exceeds your wits and wiles, the band discovers you and attack, but your party will get a first strike in combat. If they don't discover you, roll 1 die to see where they lead you. Okay, so options. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to follow them. So rule 109. So 219, following. In some events, you may secretly follow or trail the events, the characters you encounter. If you encounter mount characters, your party must also be mounted to follow. If it's winged, then obviously you also need winged mounts. In this case, we are able to follow them. So when you follow, roll 1 dice to determine which direction the chase will lead. So we're going to see where it goes. 6. So northwest. So we're going to the fields in this case. The party moves to that hex during the day, and all remaining normal traveling or actions during the day are ended. So we're not going to have any other events, and we're going to go back to the goblins. So we follow them to the fields, and we need to see if they actually notice us. They roll a d6, 1, so it's not exceeding our wits and wiles, so they didn't discover us. And we're going to see where they lead us to, which is a d6. A 2. Event 053, a campsite. Roll 2 dice for the campsite location. You may now elect to fight the characters you encounter at the campsite or not. If you don't, unless otherwise indicated in a previous event, you must hide in the text until tomorrow. If you elect to fight the characters counted and kill them, you gain control of their campsite as well. Oh, that's perfect. So we follow these band of goblins and their leader, the hobgoblins, to this campsite in this countryside. And I think we are going to fight them. So I'm going to set up the combat. I'm going to come back with that. So as you can see, I've got a combat setup over here. So we have 3 goblins who have a combat skills of 3, endurance of 3. They also have wealth of 1, code of 1. And we also have a hobgoblin over here, which is a lot more dangerous, a combat skill of 6, endurance of 5, and also wealth of 5. So in this game, the combats are relatively simple, but it does require quite a lot of dice rolling. So what you do is you roll d6 for your attack, and then what you need to do is add the difference between your combat skill and the enemy's combat skill. So in this case, if we are to attack the goblins, then obviously we will have our d6 plus 8 minus their combat skill of 3, which gives us a plus 5. If we were to fight the hobgoblin, then it will only give us plus 2. And in this game, after that, you will need to consult the combat table. If it's one of these numbers, it will produce a wounds. Otherwise, it will simply be missed. Now, there are also other combat modifiers. Once you start getting wounds, so you have lost health, then you will have a -1 to your strike. And also, if your target is half of their health, then obviously you will also get a +2 bonus. So in this case, we're going to try to fight them. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to fight the hobgoblin first. So the first thing first is just roll a die. So I roll a 2 plus the 2 from the difference, which is a 4. So if we look at the table, it means that we have missed. And then it will be the enemy's turn. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to simplify some of the rules of the rolls. So I'm going to just roll 1 for the hobgoblin and 1 for all of the 3 goblins together. So let's see what the hobgoblin does. So it's a roll of 3, but it's going to -2 because the difference with our combat skills is -2. So it also misses in this case. I'm going to roll 1 for all of these goblins together. So I have a 2 -5 is -3. So again, they also miss. So I'm going to try to skip this combat and we'll come back with the result. So I've managed to defeat all the hobgoblins and the goblins, and I've just lost 1 of my health. But it is going to be time to do some loot. So first of all, there are 3 goblins with wealth of 1. So I'm going to roll all of them together. I'm going to see what we get. So I've got 2 4s. So basically, 2 4s give me just 1 gold, and the last one is a 2. So just basically, they give me 2 gold from the goblins, and I'm gonna see what the hobgoblins are gonna give me. So he has a wealth code of 5. So I'm gonna roll on this roll. So a 2. So 3 plus A. So first of all, we get another 3 gold. So it's 5. And what is A? A is in this row. A6, E185. So E185, poison drug. This drug can be applied to the weapons of any one character in your party. It means that whatever the character strikes in combat and inflicts wounds, each normal wound given, 1 extra poison wound is also given. After the combat where the poisoned weapon is used, roll 1 die. A 6 means the poison has worn off and the weapon returns to normal. Since a character often has multiple weapons, he has the option to use his poisoned normal as desired. Oh, that's pretty good. So I've got this this poison drug from this hobgoblins, and on top of that, actually, we have the event of the campsite, which I think is, I'll go pretty back to that one. We are actually in this campsite of E053. So we've gained control of the campsite. The campsite locations are, we're going to roll 2d6 to see what we have. 4. So the campsite at the entrance to cave tombs. If you gain control, go to E028. So in this countryside, we have initially followed this band of goblins from the forest to this side, and they actually leads us to the cave tombs. So potentially it will be maybe their lair or something like that. We don't know. So we're going to the event E028 Cave Tombs. Amid the howling winds on a craggy cliffs, you find caves, and within caves, the tombs of an ancient race. You can decide to avoid them, ending the event, or you can continue inwards and investigate the tombs. If you continue inwards, roll 1 die. I guess I'm gonna continue. So a 2. E031 Looted Tomb. You find a partially looted tomb of a dead prince. Under his sarcophagus, you find a secret compartment, but it has a trap lock. Roll 1 die. If your weight exceeds it, you have outweighted the trap. Otherwise, see the event. So let's see if we outweighted it first. A 2. We have a width of 6. Of course, we outweighted it. So let's see what we get. In other cases, you find a treasure with wealth code of 50, plus a gift of charm. However, the gift of charm is very old. Roll 1 die. If the result of 5 is 6, it turns into dust as you lift it from the compartment and is therefore worthless. Okay, let's see what we get. Oh crap, so the gift of charm is too old and it turned into dust, but good news is we can still get the code 50 treasure. So let's see what we have in here. 4. So another 52 gold. So it was a really good find. So we are now suddenly from no gold at all, we are now at 52 gold. So as you can see, this game is the events in this game goes from one to another, and there's lots of different possibilities and options, similar to a choose your own adventure book. But the thing is different is that there seems to be a bit more player urgencies. You can decide at any turn to follow the goblins or not, or you can proceed with the cave or not, and you can from there onwards you can potentially get gold or not get gold and so forth. But in our case, we actually get a pretty good result. We defeated them, we get 50 gold, and we also get the poisoned drugs. So from there on, I will see where we're going to go, and we'll come back on that. So this is week 2, day 1, and we have managed to come into the town of Cumbria. And we also have our full food, so we don't have a lot of events during that process. But it's good to talk at what we can do in town, because in this game there's quite a lot of options that you can do. So first of all, you can seek news and information. That basically means that you just roll 2d6 and see what kind of event you're going to get. There are all sorts of different events, some good, some bad. And if you have your wits higher than 5, which we do have, we also get a +1. If you can also spend some gold to improve your result as well. On the other hand, you can start to look for followers. So again, you can roll 2d6 to see what kind of followers you have. There are all sorts of different followers. Some of them are mercenaries, some of them are guide, which will allow you to go through terrains without getting lost. Some of them might even be runaway boys and girls, which in that case you think you need to pay for them, except for food and lodging. But they have a really poor combat results. You can also seek audience with the local lords and potentially get some different results. So what I think I'm going to do, because we have gained some 52 gold from those goblin camps back in there, even though, and also from the caved tombs, I think I'm going to find a follower. So I'm going to roll 2d6 and see what we get. So a 10. An honest horse dealer in an area can buy horses for mounts at 7 gold each. So that's interesting. So we can buy a horse ourselves, and we can get a horse that allows us basically travel 2 hexes per day instead of 1. But the problem is obviously if we go into town, then we're going to pay for the stable cost as well. So I think I am going to do that. So I've got to spend 7 gold, so I'm going to get 50 gold now, and now I am mounted. So now that I'm mounted, I think I'm going to spend another day in this town, although that means that we will need to pay for our stables, so it's going to back to 49 for sure. We have to also spend some food because we can't hunt in that location. So I'm going to spend the other day actually looking for news in this case, and we're going to see what kind of news we get. So 2d6s. It's got a 5 plus our 1. That means that we get the large caravan in town. If you visit them today, go to Event 129. So on our horses, I'm gonna ride to this this caravan, and see how that goes. So Event 129. A merchant caravan. You meet a merchant caravan camped for the night. You may halt for the day with them to talk and trade, or you can ignore them and end its event. If you stop, roll 2 dice and consult the charts. As you can see, written in this format, this is actually not a unique event that you can only encounter in the town. You can also encounter this in the wilderness. So it's a very clever way of using the same event on multiple different encounters. So we're going to roll 2d6 to see what we get. So we got a 12, that's great. So, caravan passed a nearby ruins yesterday. Roll 1 die for which adjacent hex contains the ruins. Okay, so going to be 5. That means southwest. So southwest means 0905 in the countryside. There's actually ruins. So as you can see, this game is actually a living map. So in this case, we can basically say this is a potential ruin over here, and we can visit them tomorrow in that case to see if we can get any treasures. And that concludes the day. So we are into day 3. We spent another food, I think I've already, I need to spend them now. So this is going to be day 3 of week 2. So I've decided to stop the gameplay here because I want to talk about Barbarian Prince in general. So over the gameplay that I've just shown, we haven't even stretched the surface of what Barbarian Prince can provide, and we have already gone through quite an adventure. We start from 0 to getting some wealth, getting a horse, finding some ruins, but there's so much more that Barbarian Prince can offer. You can get lots of followers, for example, that we haven't even touched upon. And all of these followers can be treated as a unique NPC. You can potentially get a guide, you can get a elf, dwarf, halflings, giant, you can get wizards, witch, magicians, merchants, escapees, fugitives, and you can even find true love during your adventure. And all of these will have some kind of mechanical implication to your adventure. Some of them will give you advantages. For example, if you get an elf, when you have encounters with other elves, then you can potentially get a bonus to your dice rolls. But when you encounter elves during, but having a dwarf followers, for example, you might have a negative result. And the way this game does all of this with so little is obviously the rule-based system. So most of the event will reference a specific rule. And these rules are basically general rules that you can use in all kinds of situations. For example, you have a general inquiry rules that handles all the conversations, and sometimes you will be able to, for example, convince people to join your team or your party without even asking for money. But at other times, they might be mercenaries, and normally what it works is you roll dice, and it will ask you to go to another rules, and you can see, for example, there will be rules for bribing people. There will be rules for escaping from a from someone. And it is such a clever way of having such a small rule set. It's about 20-something pages, but using the event paragraph system, that every encounter is basically feeling a lot more fresh than what it should be. So I have had multiple, for example, encounters with dwarf, but there are ways that it modifies it. Sometimes the dwarf is alone, sometimes it has a party, sometimes it is a band. And you will never know whether these dwarf, how you're going to interact with them. Are they going to be friendly? Are they going to attack you straight away? And unlike a lot of modern Oracle-based RPG, where when you encounter an NPC, you roll a dice to see if they're friendly or not, you have to pick whether you're going to talk to them, to evade them, to fight them, before you know whether they are actually going to be friendly or hostile. So in cases if you try to talk to them, there are chances that they will be for hire. Sometimes they are looters, sometimes they just want to have a conversation, and sometimes they will simply straight away attack you. And it basically allows this rule set to be treating every NPC as a fresh encounter, even though you are still encountered the same event. Each time it could be different. You will never be able to tell what you're going to encounter. Similar for the maps. Even though this is a pre-drawn maps, there are ways that you can alter this. So sometimes we have encountered a few runes. Sometimes you will encounter hidden towns, towns owned by, elves. And in that case, you need to prove your worth to the elves to be allowed to get into the town. And in those towns, all the followers that you recruit will obviously be elves. So in a way, this game uses so little to create such a grand scale of adventure. It provides the illusion of a bigger game than what it is. And in a way, I think this is one of the possibilities that we never had regarding how we treat fantasy games. Obviously, D&D has been the most popular games where there's a DM, a GM to actually dictate or interpret different results or different rule sets. But what Arnold showed is a concrete way. So everything has a rule set. You can every event you can rely on the rules to tell you what to do instead of having a referee or a GM to tell you what is the result. Now, it doesn't mean that this is not actually influential, because what it does is that in all video games, the nowadays RPG video games like Elder Scrolls and so forth, you can see the impact of using that system. Because if you think about modern video games, they are using exactly the rule-based system. So when you have an encounter, it will reference a rule. If you try to talk to an NPC, then it will actually reference what kind of rules, possibilities there are, and basically choose the outcome based on your selections or based on a specific possibility dice rolls. So in a way, I think this is a pioneer of the modern open world RPG in video game formats, and I think there's a lot that we can learn as soloists in the solo RPG pen and paper or tabletop world. There are things that we can learn instead of relying on a just Oracle-based system. There are other ways that we can explore. There are other ways that we can create a solo D&D or solo RPGs without having to just rely on oracles. So this game, I have actually recut the character sheets and also the map into this poker size. So similar to Drifters, it allows me to just bring it around with me with these two booklets and play it anywhere I want. So I'll include the links below. So hope you enjoy this video. I will talk to you guys later. Thank you. Bye bye.